We have some clues, I think, that are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon.
Is this a nationwide search? Is this a search going to Mexico?
I'm not talking about a search. I'm talking about a solution.
New clues in the abduction case of Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother.
1 week ago tonight, Savannah Guthrie's elderly mother, Nancy, was last seen at home. Investigators are now retracing their steps, returning to her house, towing a car, climbing onto the roof to inspect cameras.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer.
Welcome to another episode of our True Crime Podcast, where we talk about the most shocking cases from around the world. Today's story is one of the most talked about cases of February 2026. It has shaken not only the United States, but also viewers and listeners across the globe. This is the mysterious disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, a well-known anchor of NBC's Today Show. Nancy vanished from her own home near Tucson, Arizona. At the scene, investigators found blood on the front porch, a removed doorbell camera, and a sudden cutoff of signals from her phone and even from her heart device. Around the same time, authorities and media began receiving strange messages that might be ransom notes. This is a kidnapping unfolding almost in real time, under the full glare of news cameras. Investigators say from the very beginning that everything points to Nancy being taken from her home against her will. If you're listening to this episode shortly after it comes out, remember that the case is still active and developing. So, sit back, get comfortable, and try to picture this. The quiet desert suburbs of Arizona. It's the middle of the night. Most people are asleep. And in one of those homes, a nightmare is just beginning for a family that thought they were safe. Who is Nancy Guthrie? She is an 84-year-old woman living in the Catalina foothills area just north of Tucson. It's a relatively affluent neighborhood, scattered houses, desert landscapes, cacti, and mountains in the distance. For many of us, it sounds like the perfect place to retire and enjoy a calm, peaceful life. Nancy lives alone. She has mobility issues. Authorities have said she cannot walk more than about 50 meters on her own and relies on regular medication to stay stable. Without it, her health can deteriorate quickly. At the same time, investigators and family members emphasize that she does not suffer from dementia or severe cognitive decline. This is not the typical situation of an elderly person who simply wanders off and gets lost. Her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, is one of the most recognizable faces on American morning television. As co-anchor of the Today Show, she appears in millions of homes every weekday. Over the years, viewers have heard her speak about her life, including her very close relationship with her mother. Savannah has talked about how, after her father died, it was just the two of them, how they lived together all through college, and how Nancy supported her dream of working in media. So when news breaks that 84-year-old Nancy has gone missing under mysterious circumstances, this is no longer just a private family tragedy. It instantly becomes a national news story, and then an international one. Let's go back to the last day Nancy was seen alive. It's Saturday, January 31, 2026. At 5:32 p.m., Nancy gets into an Uber to go to a family dinner and game night. Investigators later interview the driver but publicly share very little about that ride. At this point, nothing seems out of place. The evening at the family home is normal. Dinner, conversation, some games. It's an ordinary Saturday, the kind of night that no one expects to become the start of a global headline. At 9:48 p.m., Nancy is driven back to her house. Home security records show the garage door opening and then closing 2 minutes later. Everything appears perfectly normal. An elderly woman returns home, probably gets ready for bed, maybe watches some television, maybe says a prayer before sleeping. These are the last moments in which we can assume she still feels safe in her own space. Then comes the night, and sometime after midnight, things begin to go very wrong. According to the timeline released by the sheriff's office, at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera at Nancy's front door suddenly goes offline. The system logs that the device has been disconnected. Minutes later, around 2:12 a.m., software tied to the security system detects motion. But there is no video. One of the devices did not have an active cloud subscription, so nothing was recorded. That movement could have been a person. It could have been an animal. On its own, it might not mean much. But in the context of everything that follows, that timestamp starts to look ominous. At 2002 8 a.m., an app used to monitor Nancy's heart device loses its connection to her phone. That detail is chilling because it shows that something interrupted her normal routine very suddenly. Either the phone was taken away, turned off, or the connection was somehow severed. Whatever happened, it happened in that window of time. Investigators now believe that in those early morning hours on Sunday, Nancy was taken from her home. Reports describe signs of tampering with the security system, a removed doorbell camera, and blood on or near the front steps, confirmed to be Nancy's. This does not look like someone who simply got up in the night and decided to walk away from her house. Sunday morning. Around 11 o'clock, someone from Nancy's church reaches out to her family. She hasn't shown up for the service. For another person, that might not raise an immediate alarm. But for Nancy, who is known to be consistent and committed to attending, it is a red flag. Her family drives to the house just before noon. They go inside and quickly realize something is wrong. Nancy is not there. Her phone is still in the home. Her medication and personal items are there, but she is nowhere to be found. At 12:03 p.m., the family calls 911. When officers arrive, they recognize early on that this is not just a routine missing person report involving an elderly woman who might have wandered off. The sheriff publicly refers to Nancy's home as a crime scene. Inside and outside the house, police find evidence that force may have been used and that someone interfered with the security equipment. The blood on the porch adds to the suspicion that Nancy has been violently removed from her own home. From that moment on, this is officially treated as a possible abduction. A large search operation begins. Helicopters scan the area from above. Drones are deployed. Search dogs comb the desert terrain. Local police, federal agents, and volunteers fan out across the Catalina foothills and surrounding areas. At the same time, technicians and analysts go to work inside the house, collecting evidence, seizing electronic devices, taking samples, and pulling any available video from nearby cameras. Authorities tow away a vehicle from Nancy's property to examine it more closely. Meanwhile, the FBI formally joins the investigation. Agents begin reviewing data from cell phones, financial records, online accounts, and anything that might offer the smallest lead on where Nancy could be and who might be behind her disappearance. As soon as the story hits national news, the pressure intensifies. NBC, CNN, ABC, the BBC, and countless local stations follow every development. Cameras gather outside the home and at the sheriff's press briefings. From the start, investigators emphasize that there is no named suspect and that no one has been ruled out. Everyone close to Nancy or connected to the scene is being looked at, but the authorities are careful not to single out any individual without solid evidence. Soon, another key element emerges, one that always grabs attention in kidnapping cases: ransom. News outlets report that law enforcement is investigating notes or messages that appear to be ransom demands, some allegedly sent to media organizations and some possibly directed toward the family. Some of these messages may be hoaxes, attempts by opportunists to insert themselves into a high-profile case. In at least one instance, there are reports of a person being arrested in connection with a false communication. But other messages contain details that only someone with inside knowledge would be likely to know. That makes investigators take them very seriously. It's a delicate balance. They must consider every message, but they cannot allow fake claims and trolling to derail the real work of the investigation. The FBI announces a reward of $50,000 for information that leads to finding Nancy. Authorities urge the public to come forward with anything they know, no matter how minor it seems. At the same time, they issue warnings about spreading rumors and unfounded accusations. They know how quickly social media can turn speculation into a witch hunt, harming innocent people and complicating the search for the truth. Nancy's family plays a central role in this story. In the days following her disappearance, Savannah Guthrie travels to Arizona. On social media and on television, a video appears of her and other family members pleading directly with whoever may be holding Nancy. With tears in her eyes, Savannah begs for her mother's safe return. She promises that the family is ready to talk, to listen, and to do whatever it takes. They just want proof that Nancy is alive, some sign that she is still out there somewhere. In a world of deepfakes and manipulated recordings, they also stress that they need to be sure they are communicating with the real kidnapper, not an imposter capitalizing on their grief. Clips from these emotional appeals are played over and over on major networks. For viewers, this is the moment when the story truly becomes personal. It is no longer just an elderly woman missing in Arizona. It is a beloved mother and grandmother whose daughter is a familiar face. People feel they know from their morning routines. Meanwhile, investigators release more details about the technical aspects of the case. They confirm that Nancy's home is being processed as a crime scene. They acknowledge evidence of physical force and tampering with the security system, including the removal of the doorbell camera. They confirm that blood found at the scene belongs to Nancy. They also describe the sudden cutoff of signals from her phone and heart device in the early hours of the morning. One striking feature of this case is the level of precision in the official timeline. Exact times are given for almost every key event: the rideshare pickup, the return home, the camera going offline, the hard device losing contact, the call from the church, the family's arrival at the house, and the 911 call. This detailed chronology narrows down the window in which the abduction could have occurred to a relatively short period between late Saturday night and early Sunday morning. In a case like this, everyone wants to know the motive. But at the time of this recording, investigators have not publicly identified a suspect, and they have made it clear that they have not ruled anyone out. The possible scenarios are many. It could be a classic ransom kidnapping triggered by the fact that Nancy is related to a high-profile public figure. It could be something more personal, something rooted in a past conflict or a hidden grievance. It could even be connected to someone in the local community, someone who knew the layout of the house and Nancy's routines. Right now, these are only questions, not answers. Officially, law enforcement is cautious. They focus on collecting evidence rather than feeding speculation. They also repeatedly ask the public to refrain from naming and shaming people online without proof. In the modern true crime landscape, where amateur sleuths comment on everything, that reminder is more important than ever. For true crime followers, this case is particularly compelling for several reasons. First, the technology. There is a highly detailed timeline constructed from security systems, phone data, and medical monitoring devices. Second, there is obvious evidence of someone deliberately trying to blind the cameras, physically disconnecting at least one device. This suggests planning, not a random act. Third, the potential ransom element brings in the dark side of modern communication. Ransom demands no longer have to come through a phone call to a landline. They can arrive as emails, online messages, or even letters to news outlets. For investigators, that means dealing with a crowded, noisy environment in which genuine leads are mixed with deliberate hoaxes and cruel pranks. Fourth, the media spotlight is intense. Because Nancy's daughter is famous, every development is amplified. That attention can help by keeping the case in the public eye and encouraging tips. But it can also create enormous pressure on the family, on investigators, and even on the person or people responsible for the crime. As of February 8, 2026, Nancy Guthrie is still officially missing, and authorities continue to treat the case as an abduction. Police and FBI agents say they believe she is still out there somewhere and insist publicly that their goal is to bring her home safe. The President of the United States has even stated that federal resources will remain available to support the investigation, underscoring how serious and high-profile this case has become. For the community in and around Tucson, the impact is huge. Local residents tell reporters that they are stunned and shaken. Many thought of their area as relatively safe, even if somewhat isolated. Now they are confronted with the reality that someone was able to enter the home of an elderly woman in the middle of the night, disable security, take her away, and disappear without leaving a clear trail. What does this case say about the world we live in? On one hand, our technology allows investigators to reconstruct events in incredible detail. Cameras, apps, GPS, and medical devices paint a precise picture of when things happened. On the other hand, this case shows that someone determined enough can still find ways to defeat or work around those systems. Technology can help solve crimes, but it cannot always prevent them. The same is true for the internet and social media. They can be powerful tools in spreading information, rallying volunteers, and prompting people to come forward with tips. At the same time, they can amplify misinformation, lead to harassment of innocent people, and create a cloud of noise that investigators must sift through. If you are listening to this sometime after early February 2026, it is possible that new information has already emerged, arrests, new evidence, maybe even a resolution to the mystery. Before drawing final conclusions, it is always a good idea to check the latest updates from credible news organizations and official law enforcement announcements. For now, what we know is this: an 84-year-old woman vanished from her home under highly suspicious circumstances. There are signs of violence and of deliberate tampering with security equipment. There are possible ransom communications, some authentic, some false. There is a family in pain, a daughter in the public eye begging for her mother's safe return, and a community wondering how something like this could happen on their doorstep. And there are questions. Who knew the security setup of Nancy's home well enough to take down cameras and move through the property in that critical window of time? Why did they choose that particular night, right after a normal family gathering, when no one expected anything unusual? Was money truly the main motive, or was it a cover for something deeper and more personal? Most haunting of all, where is Nancy? Is she still alive somewhere, waiting to be found? And who, right now, holds the answers to what took place between 1047 and 2028 that night, when the devices went silent and darkness truly fell on a quiet house in the Arizona desert? Thank you for spending this time with me and for listening to this episode. If you follow true crime stories and want to stay updated on how this case develops, keep an eye on reputable news sources and official statements. If the mystery of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is ever solved, we will have a very different story to tell, one that finally explains what happened on that night and why. Until then, stay safe, be kind to the people around you, and remember that behind every headline is a real person and a real family.